Good morning and welcome to Veterans Heartbeat on the Pulse of the Veteran, where we discuss issues of health, happiness, opportunity, and well-being of interest to the veteran community, their families, and the community who honors them.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Veterans Heartbeat, brought to you by River, the Rural Institute for Veterans Education and Research. My name is Jason Zenkgraf. My co-host is Ed Lisofsky here with me, and he's the Executive Director of River. We welcome you to a weekly wide-ranging discussion of issues, events, opportunities, and needs in our veterans community. Good morning, Ed. How you doing?
Good morning, Jason.
All right. We would like to thank our sponsor, The Man Shop. It's a great place for a guy to get a haircut. If you need a haircut, swing on by and check them out. The gals there do a really good job. We're also sponsored by River, the Rural Institute for Veterans Education and Research. They offer many services to veterans, such as a weekly free TBI and vestibular disorder testing, educational programs that focus on veterans helping veterans, and many other services. So today we're going to focus on who we are and what River does. We've been talking about River a bit. We've kind of, mentioned who we are, but we really want to dive in depth so you know who the people are behind just the voices on the radio. I'm Jason Zenkgraf. I was born in Lolo, Montana. Went to high school at Big Sky High School here in Missoula, and then I went to the University of Montana for Health and Human Performance. As I was going to college, I started training mixed martial arts because I had done some boxing, some wrestling, started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, things like that. And I started fighting MMA, and I noticed how beneficial it was for me physically, obviously, but also mentally. It really kind of keeps you on an even keel, helps kind of mitigate some of those negative emotions that people always face, from time to time. As I've been fighting MMA, I've had about 20 fights, and throughout my training, I came across my current coach. I won't name his name, but he's 18 Delta, which is a Delta Force operative. He was that for about 25 years or so and retired. So in working with him, it kind of helped give me this insight into the veterans world. I have a lot of veterans buddies, and I've lost a lot of them to their own hands. But seeing a Special Forces operative like him, it really gave me this appreciation for veterans. I'm not a veteran myself, but I've seen a lot of the issues that a lot of them deal with, and seeing it firsthand from somebody who I look up to, like my coach, really reinforced a lot of the things that we've been seeing. As I was training, I actually met Ed Lisofsky. I was training him. I was just a personal trainer, and then he started talking about this crazy idea he had about veterans helping veterans, getting licensed as EMTs, and all these other things, and helping them with all these different modalities from mental health, physical health, moral health, counseling, all that kind of stuff. So I started working with him about a year after he started River, and I helped him hone this vision that he had into what became River. And River at the very beginning was just working out of his house. We weren't really making a big splash. We were driving 8 hours to Sidney, Montana, and Culbertson, Montana, and 8 hours back once a month. And we were training veterans, and it was a lot of fun, but it was really wearing on both of us. And we slowly and surely started getting traction. We're gaining traction. We had a lot of people help us along the way, people who we've had on this show, people who we respect immensely. And we eventually moved into a building that we're in right now, and we're operating out of it. We'll talk about the specifics of River in a bit, but we have an education side and we have a clinic side, and we've really honed in on the education side. It's gotten very, very successful, very tight, and it's going very well. The clinic side is evolving as well, but it is very impressive to see River go from this little idea in someone's basement to this organization that's touching so many veterans and helping them out in such amazing ways. So that's kind of my little spiel about who I am and how I came in to River, and a little bit about River. So, Ed, if you want to take it away, I'll let you kind of explain who you are, what your background is, and how River came to be.
Well, thank you, Jason. A little bit about me. I've got a degree in law from American Military University. I have completed a number of courses in social work with the University of New Mexico. And then I went over and became a clinical suicidologist. During my time in my master's program in social work, I did some work with the American Red Cross as the chief caseworker for the state of Montana. 2 services to armed forces, which was for veterans and active duty folks. In my undergrad degree, a number of my fellow vets that were combat vets that I had gotten to know pretty well had completed suicide. It kind of drove where I was going. In my master's program, I wanted nothing to do with crisis work. Where did I end up to do my practicum was with the American Red Cross, doing exactly that. We were dealing with as many as 5 suicides a week. And I'd been to a number of these meetings that the government puts on, these forums that they put on over veteran suicide, and it just seemed like the same story. It was like Groundhog Day. The meetings just, well, we talked about it, let's go and see something else. When you came in to do my training, I was pushing almost 280, 300 pounds, couldn't even walk across the parking lot. It is a very emotional topic for a lot of us. In the past almost 5 years now, I've worked over 3,000 clinical interventions and worked with about 160 families that have had a veteran complete suicide. The youngest suicide that I worked with was a 5-year-old, and I've worked at just about every age range from there. We needed something. The VA, everybody likes to pick on the VA. Problem is, it's a system. Just like when we went into the military, it was a system. It's designed to do one thing, and it does it well. And there are certain elements that make that system work for not everybody, but for the masses. And that's the problem with the VA. It can't be individualized. It's just too hard when you're trying to cover the United States and several foreign territories where the VA operates. Recognizing this, in my undergrad degree, we worked on a project for a fire department that was putting in community paramedicine, where we were taking EMTs, training them a little bit more, and pushing them out into the field to be able to provide some kind of care for veterans. That care was really the only care a lot of these people were getting. There was no funding for somebody that was 70 years old that needed a weekly, just a welfare check. Going into the doctor would have required getting wheelchair into the whole thing. So in looking at that program, 36 states around the United States right now currently allow for community paramedicine. Montana does not. But it's been my mission to bring that to the veterans community, and that's why we went up to these trips into Sydney. During the trips to Sydney, we've trained, how many have we done up there? About 20 students or so?
Yeah, about 20.
And we know that it works because we've been able to call on those students when we've got crisis. And that's the other thing that River does, is we operate a crisis line. And when we've had crises, those students have stood up and went out, and they have helped their fellow veterans. So we know that program is working. That was the program that was alluded to with Austin Knutson, who we really wish to thank for pushing forward. And the other one that has been a blessing to the veterans out there is Mike Hopkins. He's the representative out of East Missoula, Bonner, on up into the Sealy area. He has really taken hold of this bill and tried to push it forward. The issue we face as veterans in a rural community, or a rural state like Montana, is there is no help. 5 hours to Billings for a physical therapy appointment twice a week. So that's a 10-hour round trip for a half-hour session, just is not on the cards. Fact that we have these licensed medical providers that are following the direction of a physician. They're not just out there willy-nilly, practicing medicine with no license, is really the only way we're going to resolve the fact that Montana is number one in the per capita suicide rate in the nation. Currently, the statistics really don't even tell the tale. I'm trained in doing forensic autopsies by the American Association of Suicidology, and that training has taught me a lot about the issue of statistics. If a veteran goes out, decides they want to kill themselves, drinks a bottle of whiskey, and hits the bridge abutment, chances are it's going to be listed as an accident. It's not going to be listed in the statistics. Based on that, based on the work we've been doing, and based on talks with the VA Suicide Prevention Coordinator in 2012, I believe, when I went to one of their conferences, we have a veteran in Montana completing suicide at the rate of 1 every 36 hours. That's unofficial statistics. We can't prove it, but even the official statistics say that 1 a week. That's unacceptable. We can and we got to do better for these guys. I've seen the carnage that's caused by all of this. The other issue that we are is River is a research institute. We're blessed with a very powerful university here in Montana, the University of Montana, which you graduated from. We were able to send 5 of our vets over to have them tested at the Neuroinjury Center. That Neuroinjury Center came back and said they have a vestibular disorder. And I was like, never heard of that. What is that? So we've been paring down the road of trying to figure out what a vestibular disorder is. If you look at the ear, which is where the vestibular system is basically centered around, veterans are exposed to a lot of loud noises. They're exposed to a lot of head jarring where they don't necessarily see it as traumatic brain injury per se, but they have all the symptoms of a traumatic brain injury or what they call a vestibular disorder. That vestibular disorder, the symptomology is depression, cognitive interruption, anger. It just pars right up with post-traumatic stress disorder. So we've been researching this. River just invested $100,000 into the ability to test for this. We have the only testing system in the state that allows us to par out if it's PTSD or TBI or a vestibular disorder. That vestibular disorder is treatable. It's not 100%, but unlike the disease of post-traumatic stress, at least we know that there is a physical cause behind it. Now, recently we were doing research and trying to find studies on the issue of, is there PTSD or is it TBI or is it vestibular? The VA, the United States Veterans Administration, completed a study, published it in December of last year, 2016, and there was an 81% correlation. In other words, out of all the people tested, 81% of the PTSD diagnosed veterans had a vestibular disorder. Now, the study didn't go on and tell us about what the treatments would do or how it could affect and help the veteran, but it only makes sense that if you are having trouble with thoughts, I mean, it's as simple as the veteran having the inability to add 2 + 2 equaling 4. They might sit there and argue with you until they're blue in the face, 2 + 2 = 7. That's simple. That's cognitive functioning. And the vestibular system is well researched, well documented, that it will cause those kind of issues. So now we're sitting on this, and our goal here at River is to reach out to the veterans community. We're going to be doing some more studies. We're going to be testing different treatments. We're very fortunate that we have several physicians, several audiologists, several neuropsychologists that are backing us up on this study. My background initially was in computer networking, and it taught me a lot of troubleshooting techniques, you know, to track down the missing wire, track down this. And those techniques have come full force for River, and that's where we're headed with this whole program, is we're trying, and if we can get out there to the veterans, something is not right when you say that we're going to take 100 guys to war and 40 of the 100 come back with a mental issue. Our veterans are stronger than that. There's got to be a physical reasoning, and I think we're on the track to it.
Yeah, so to reiterate what Ed was saying, of that study that the VA conducted December of last year, 81% of these veterans who had PTSD also had a vestibular disorder that was undiagnosed. So while so many of the symptoms, anxiety, anger, depression, stress, things like that, so when it comes to the vestibular disorders, it's very new territory for veterans or for the VA system. It's very exciting as well. People have known for a long time that certain demographics, like, for example, the elderly, have vestibular disorders, have problems with full ears. You know, feels like your ear needs to pop, dizziness, you know, a loss of balance, things like that. Well, that's kind of been known, but a lot of people don't think about veterans having that. Well, you're firing rifle all day. You're near explosions all day. You get thrown against a wall. I mean, that's going to start damaging, well, not only your brain, but the vestibular system in that inner ear as well. So it's very exciting, and we're very happy to have these new pieces of technology to test for traumatic brain injury and vestibular disorder. So if you are a veteran out there and you think you might have one of these disorders, please get a hold of us. Either call 406-540-2302 or call 406-273-8426. Those are our two business lines. You could also email us at either Jason or Ed at riverofchange.org. And we'll try to incorporate you into the study that we're about to conduct. We're still putting the nuts and bolts together, but it's come a long ways, and we're going to be kicking it off very soon. Or check us out on Facebook at River, in parentheses, Rural Institute for Veterans Education and Research. Now we're going to focus on River and what we do there. So River has two major components to it: the education side and the clinic side. First, we're going to talk about the education side. We have 3 programs. One is a smaller 8-week course, and it trains veterans in how to train up their own service dog and how they can use it in the community. Problem is, that's a hard course to kind of line up since it's such a short duration. So if you are interested in that, please let us know. But we have 2 other programs that are both 1 year in length. One is called the Recreational Therapist. The other is called the Community Veteran EMT. We are approved for veterans benefits, so any veteran can come to us, use their GI Bill, and they can take any of these programs. So, Ed, do you want to explain the Recreational Therapist program and how it's laid out and what it's for?
Well, there's a number of us veterans out in Montana that love the outdoors. That's why we live here. And we have a number of programs out there like Exports for Vets, many veterans in the area are aware of, Fish on Waters. Many of those programs are to take veterans out and do what's called recreational therapy. Recreational therapy is essentially getting into a clinical therapy session without the couch. In other words, it takes them out into the outdoors. The reason for this program was to enhance the programs that are out there that are providing recreational therapy. We are able to take advantage of emergency medical responder, or EMR, which provides first aid. We are able to teach them how to go out and do kayaking and learn how to work with a big group. So when they complete this program, they can go out and work with other veterans organizations or even create their own. So it was our way to provide for therapy for veterans in the rural areas. In the outdoor areas.
So in the recreational therapist program, veterans going through will have the ability to test for health coach certification offered by the American Council on Exercise. They'll also be able to get licensed, like Ed was saying, as an EMR, emergency medical responder, with an emphasis on wilderness. So when they're out there kayaking, for example, say somebody falls, breaks their arm. Okay, now they know what to do. So that program is a lot of fun to teach, but I think it's going to have a very therapeutic impact on the veterans community, and we're excited to see more events come out of it. We've already had a couple events. We went up to Whitefish, about 140 individuals comprised of veterans and their families, and basically they could go up for about $20 a piece, and everything else was completely paid for. 3 nights, 3 lift tickets, every breakfast, dinner, and just meet other veterans and families and just have a lot of fun. And it was a lot of fun to put that on. Showed a lot of value there, and we'd love to see more of those happening in the future. Now, that's the recreational therapist program. We also have the community veteran EMT program. As they go through this, it's a much more medical-directed program. They get licensed as a basic EMT, certified as a personal trainer, a health coach, and a behavioral health technician. There's also smaller courses that don't receive national certifications, but are very good to know in terms of, group counseling, intro to family systems, intro to addictive behaviors, things that veterans might be experiencing. So the idea behind the CVEMT program is these veterans in rural areas don't have to drive 5 hours to Billings and 5 hours back twice a week for a physical therapy appointment. They can go there once, get what they call an exercise prescription, take it back 5 hours away to their home, and then this CVEMT can go to their house. They can have 1 in the area, 2 in the area, how many, the more the merrier, and then they can give this paraprofessional level. They can continue that exercise prescription, and they can offer peer counseling, they can offer stretches, exercises, and things like that to help them out instead of leaving them 5 hours away from all these professionals. So that's River in a nutshell. Hopefully you enjoyed getting the chance to get to know Ed and myself a little bit better and what River does. Again, if you have any questions about River, give us a call at 540-2302 or 273-8426, or check us out on the web at riverofchange.org.
One thing I want to say in closing, Jason, is I sure appreciate the man shop. I've been going there about every 2 weeks to get a haircut, and the gals there are just phenomenal.
Absolutely, Ed. They do a great job. I might go there soon myself. Well, thank you very much for listening to Veterans Heartbeat. We could not be able to bring this to you without all the support of the listeners. We really appreciate it. Also, our main sponsor, River, which hopefully by now you know a little bit more about us, and our array of services such as veterans-focused education and free TBI and vestibular disorder clinic and studies. And finally, we would like to show our appreciation to all the veterans out there and all the servicemen and servicewomen for serving our country and keeping us safe. Thank you very much. God bless America.
Keep listening to Veterans Heartbeat. We will be having some more cutting-edge guests coming on very soon, and it is exciting times in the veterans world. Thank you for listening.